Welcome to Shore Perspectives, a community feature of WESR Radio, highlighting the spirit of the shore from those who call it home.
My name is Jaqueline James, and I live in Painter, Virginia. I went to Central, of course, in 1964. 2 years prior to that, I went to Marion Smith, 64. 2 years prior to that, I went to Marion Smith, which I did at the freshman and my my freshman year. I was 8th grade, and then I went to the 9th grade, and that's when everything changed, the sophomore year. Well, I know that, there was no integration at that time. Everybody went to their own schools. All the whites went to school together, and all the blacks went to school together. And that's just the way it was then. And it was accepted at that time because there was no other, we didn't know any other. So this is what we did. And of course, even in other areas as well, going to restaurants, the whites went to their restaurants, the blacks didn't go. If we did go to a restaurant, well, we had to go around the back. That's just the way it was, and it was just the way of life, and we didn't know no other at that time. In 1954 is when the courts decided that it was unlawful to have segregation. So it wasn't the law of the land at that time. It was just by choice. And what happened, the NAACP was very strong in trying to integrate, because as you know, in the South, schools were being integrated, but not without incidents. They were escorted to school with the National Guard. Parents had to take them. So we were looking at that, and that was not a good feeling seeing that. And so what happened in 1964 is when the NAACP decided they were going to try and integrate the schools here in Accomack and Northampton County, only by choice. And it was the spring of 1964 when two ladies came and went about to different areas in the county to try and get parents to sign their kids up to go to the various white schools. And of course, I was one, I would be going to Central High School. So down in that Painter, Boston area, there were about 10 or 11 parents who had signed the petition for their kids to go to Central High. And this was during the spring. And of course, my father had signed me up as well. And I didn't think much of it because I was going with 10 or 11 others, so it was all fine. And of course, as spring came and went, summer came, and it was in August when my father came in and he said, there's only one person that will be going to Central because everybody else has withdrawn their applications. Well, of course, it didn't sit well with me at all. And I said, well, who was that one person? He says, it'll be you. And I was not happy. I was very, very upset. But my father's so strong in his convictions, he said, you will be going. And I begged and I pleaded, but he said, no, you're going. So for me, it was really a very, very serious time because here I was alone going to an all-white school. So that was not sitting well at all. But anyway, August went, September came, and of course, I began the journey of going to Central, and the school bus rolled up to my house. And of course, I got on the bus, and the bus driver introduced herself. Everybody else was quiet. And we just proceeded on to the schools. And of course, when we're going into the unknown, we don't know what can happen. And so I was nervous and scared at the same time. And as we got to Central, and the bus driver said we were pulling in, and everybody got off. And of course, I got off as well, walked alone. Everybody just went on about their business. But I can say that the teachers were all standing there waiting for me. And as I entered the building, they greeted me and told me who they were, and then they showed me my classrooms. And of course, after that, I just went to my classes alone. And I did what I had to do. And for about 3 months, I was just sort of alone because no one really said anything. They looked at me, and I think some may have wanted to say something, but this was the first time, and people just didn't know how things were going to go, how the reaction would be. So I just continued to do what I had to do. I would come home every afternoon, and I would say to my parents, can I go back to Marion Smith? And they said, no, you have started, and you're not backing out, you're going. And of course, I was not happy with them in the beginning, not happy at all. But I just went on and did what I had to do. And I guess in about 3 months, a couple of young ladies did come and sit with me at the table. Judy Jones, and it was another young lady, Gloria Bradford, but they did come and sit with me. And from there, we just talked about classroom teachers and laughed. And it made it a little easier, because being alone in a place where nobody's really talking to you, except the teachers, of course, it just was very unsettling. Of course, end of the school year, and some of the students did come to me and say, "Jackie, are you coming back in September?" And I said, "Yes, I am." I knew without a doubt that I was coming back, because my parents were not going to let me say no and come back. And that's what happened. And I just went on, and after that, others joined. But it was a good experience. It made me feel good about myself after it was all said and done. And it helped my self-esteem as well. And I felt like, I could probably do anything, kind of, sort of, And that's what I did. And after I graduated from Central, because there were 2 other young ladies who graduated with me, and here I am today, telling the story of how it began. It's good when you have someone who's there to encourage you, because with my situation, I had my parents. So I say to anyone who is venturing out, it's not easy, especially when you're going into something new. But if you're persistent and you really want to do this thing, you have to do it. And there may be some consequences, but if you're strong enough, then it will get better. Because backing, as my parents said to me, it will get better. And when I would tell them that I was talking to some of the young ladies, my father would say, "Didn't I tell you that?" But in the beginning, you cannot see that. So I'm just saying to those who are venturing out, just continue to do what you have to do. Some things you just got to, if I can say, pray on it to get into the situation. And it may not be easy, but if something you really want, just keep on doing it, and in the end, it will be successful. My parents, because they were church goers, they believed in God, and that's why my father has said, it's going to be fine, God's going to take care of it. Well, I was a 15-year-old. God, okay, I was going to church, but, God just wasn't in the picture for me at that moment. But they had the faith to continue, because many persons had said to them, "You'd better not let her go. The consequences, things is going to happen." And my father just said, "I'm going to let her go. She's going. And what you're saying, I hear you. But this is something that she's going to do, and we are there with her to do it. And we're just going to pray on it, and things will be fine." And as you see, that's what happened. I had spoken at Central when I first came back from New York, and some of the kids threw out questions. And one young man said, "Well, if you didn't want to go, why did you go?" And I said, "Because this is what my parents wanted me to do." And at that time, growing up, whatever your parents wanted you to do, you did it. You may not have always wanted to, but the end result is what was counting. And that's what counted when I look back. And I thank them many times for just being persistent, standing their ground, because sometimes if we don't stand for something, we may fall for anything. And sometimes you just can't give up on what you believe in. It may be difficult again, but you have to do what you have to do. And this is what I say to the young people. Listen to your parents. 95% of the time your parents are encouraging you, pushing you to be the good person they want you to be, to do the right thing, and not rebel and say, "I don't want to do it." Because I know those who backed off and did not come to Central said to me, "Jackie, I wish my parents had been like your parents and made me." But the moment they said, "I don't want to go," and the parents said, "Okay, we'll go and withdraw your application." And so sometimes, even though we may be saying we don't want to, but I think when you think deep about it, kids sometimes are crying out, wishing the parents would push them. But it's so easy when you say, "I don't want to," and the parents say, "Okay," and that's what happens. I feel good about myself no matter where I am, whatever situation I'm in. I've always felt really good about myself. And that's the key, because so many people are not happy with themselves. But this experience, it just made me feel good. Plus, it made me feel like I don't have the great fear that I had when I was growing up. And of course, again, I was 15 years old. But I really just feel good about myself. I'm happy I did what I did. It made me a better person, a stronger person. And even as I traveled to New York and lived there, situations that I was in, I just felt good making the decisions. And it all came out better than I even thought. But that was because I kept on doing what I had to do and not giving up. And the one thing I say to young people, don't give up. You can be whoever you want to be. Sometimes the road may be a little rough, but that's a part of life. We get over that roughness and we keep going. And this is what we have to instill in our young people, to keep striving. The sky's the limit.
For Shore Perspectives and WESR Radio, I'm Kelley Gaskell.